So read, stuck on the block, read, sitting in the box, read. What's going on, people? This is Akala, and this week's great read. Before I get into it, I must say I'm a little bit embarrassed because it's been brought to my attention by the homie LB that this week's great read contains our first female contributor to the Great Read series, which is pretty pathetic. Considering some of the greatest authors I've ever read, Edwidge Danticat, Toni Morrison, Arundhati Roy, are women. So I'm obviously going to make sure I fix that. It makes me think about, am I deliberately being sexist? Am I subconsciously being sexist? Definitely subconsciously, because we've done about 40 episodes now, or whatever it is. I don't know what episode number this is going to be, to be honest with you. We'll schedule it in. And we haven't yet included a woman author. That's pretty poor. But it does make me think also about how much men are still greatly overrepresented in the world of academia, in the world of writing, and those things, which is something that needs to be challenged societally. So a little bit embarrassed that that's the case, but thought I'd acknowledge it because we discussed it off camera. But Fiona Staples is the artist, obviously a very brilliant artist, as you can see. Brian K. Vaughan is the writer, and this week's great read is Saga, which is an epic, futuristic, so let's have a look at some of the artwork, sci-fi story set in a futuristic world on the planet Landfall and the moon reef that have an intergalactic struggle. One group of the people have horns, one group of the people have wings, and the planet and the moon are kind of at peace, but they're at war around the entire rest of the universe, which of course has obvious parallels to the Cold War. But then the story also has a little bit of a Romeo and Juliet vibe. So their two societies, their planet and their moon, hate one another. Their families hate one another. The entire society is actually more than just two family groups, are pit against one another. Yet this man and this woman fall in love, and it's their story of falling in love and their family story. It's actually told from the perspective of their child. She's telling the story of her parents, how they met, how they had her, context in which they had her, and the entire war. Brian K. Vaughan is an incredible writer. I've read Ex Machina and Why the Last Man as well. He's probably the best new writer, or one of the best new writers, and by new I mean the obvious classics, the Grant Morrison, the Alan Moores, those people. But of the new crop of comic book writers, he's really, really top draw. He deliberately sort of obscures his own politics, though, which he's addressed, which is interesting, because he feels it will colour perceptions of his work, one way of approaching it. Whatever his politics are or are not, homie can write his arse off. Really, really great story. This is book one, which is like the collected issues of the comic from 1 to, I don't know, 40 or whatever it is. I would recommend you just buy this now. There's no point going and getting every single individual comic, in my opinion, and this makes for a good meaty read. This week's great read is Saga, book 1 by Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples. Big up. So read, stuck on the block, read, sitting in the box,